Substance found by a Southwest Arkansas man be part of a government test? Well, that's the question at the heart of a phenomenon called chemtrails, now getting widespread attention.
Well, they say the government is dumping chemicals on us to control or manipulate the weather.
And they say the unusual-looking jet trails in the sky are actually chemical-laden chemtrails.
People say the government is up there in airplanes spraying all kinds of chemicals to change or manipulate the weather, leaving what you see there, and they call that a chemtrail. So when I look up there and I think are contrails, you're telling me are chemtrails?
Yes, that a contrail would be dissipated by now.
And it's interesting, Dale and Christina, this is of interest not just in this country, but European countries and frankly all over the world. A lot of folks interested in it.
Well, Dave, you mentioned that climatologists and others who study the atmosphere believe that they'd be able to surely spot any kind of signs of an ominous plot.
2008, a biological nanotechnology pesticide designed to kill the brown moth in the state of California was deployed and appears to have included the same sort of fluorescent invisible microdye that we see in the scientific research. Dr. Hildegard Staninger tested individuals exposed to this nanotech pesticide and found that a glow could be detected in their eyes under UV light. Dr. Staninger called this the Eye of Horus effect due to its similar appearance, and claimed it was due to the use of fluorescent thiocyanate in the pesticide, which according to the literature would have been used to track the effectiveness of the dispersal. The idea has been around for decades. The Institute for National Security Studies' Non-Lethal Weapons Terms and References, published in 1997, discusses an invisible infrared dye which is visible under UV light so that rioters can be later identified. Justin Coy points out how the genetic code for luciferase, a bioluminescent enzyme found in nature, is included in the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, along with SV40, which could theoretically allow the luciferase to be written into the genetics of the recipient. Coy proposes that this could be what is causing the vaxxed to glow under UV light.
Potion that so many people were ready to take. Speaking of the potion and the components, I wanted to show you this right here. It says we study theoretically the optical response of graphene, and we know that that is a major component in those in the potion. The optical response of graphene at a range of temperature and doping where both electrons and holes are present. We show that two types of collective modes should exist in these systems. Besides the higher frequency mode, which is the familiar plasmon, graphene should support a lower frequency mode, which is variously referred to as the sound, acoustic plasmon, energy wave, or, as we prefer from this article, the demon. The demon can be studied using the relativistic hydrodynamics approach. We discuss linear and nonlinear phenomena enabled by the demons and how they can be observed in nano-optics experiments. We also address nonlinear electric and thermal transport in graphene in the hydrodynamic regime. But in the beast system, which we exist in right now, it always goes back to the demons. It always seems to go back to the devil somehow, if you're paying attention. Because remember, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. And I see it all the time. We see it all the time.
The ancient Chinese also connected plagues and diseases to the supernatural and took it one step further. They kept meticulous records about when there were outbreaks of disease and actual celestial events.
They connected reports of unusual comets, things that we today would call UFOs, to outbreaks of plague. So this has been universal. It's not just been a few places, it's not just been a few plagues, it's actually been very consistent throughout history.
So many different ancient cultures right across the world had this point of view that plagues were caused by things that happen in the skies.
People reported seeing strange objects in the sky that they called glowing gold shields. Had visions of bronze ships in the sky and headless creatures.
And whenever these events took place, in the middle of daylight, by the way, people fell ill. Then something would be witnessed again up in the sky, and there would be another outbreak.
In the middle of the 6th century, another virus nearly succeeded in wiping out most of humanity. The Justinian Plague.
There aren't really good records back then of how many millions of people died. but a significant percentage of the world died.
You know, everything was going on okay 1 minute, and then all of a sudden people kind of rotting in front of you. Wow, where's this come from?
Like the plague of Athens, the Justinian plague was accompanied by multiple reports of strange sightings in the sky. In 1347, ships full of Italian sailors died suddenly after being covered in oozing black boils filled with blood and pus. The disease spread rapidly throughout Europe and soon had a name: the Black Plague.
The Black Plague was widely seen as an act of God for the sinfulness of the people.
What you get is a slow, lingering, painful death. And that's what is nasty. And it completely decimates populations.
Within 5 years, this previously unknown disease had wiped out nearly 1/3 of Europe, the equivalent, in today's numbers, of more than 300 million dead. And just like previous epidemics, the outbreaks of plague were accompanied by sightings of strange aerial phenomena.
People saw strange bronze ships spreading a mist around the entire area. Shortly after that, people began to become very sick and die.
Bronze ships, just like those reported during the Justinian plague 800 years earlier. But what natural phenomenon could appear in the sky that would fit such a description? And what was the mysterious mist that people saw floating down from the sky?
If you ask a historian today, they would say that they were hallucinating because of the illness. But how do you get thousands of people hallucinating the same thing?
One of these supposed hallucinations featured reports of mysterious cloaked figures spraying mist on the ground. It was this report that gave rise to rumors of a black-hooded messenger of death, later known as the Grim Reaper.
In one case, the chronicle recounts a group of men mowing down wheat, and their scythes were making a loud swishing sound, but not actually cutting down the crops. We can imagine that maybe what was perceived in medieval times as scythes making a swishing sound were perhaps some kind of wand shooting some kind of aerosol into the air that was a pathogen that made so many people sick.
People reported a number of strange beings that would spray onto the wheat. And shortly after that, the Black Death occurred. And maybe our idea of the Reaper was extraterrestrial in origin.
Mysterious plagues accompanied by extraterrestrial sightings, and gruesome deaths preceded by ominous apparitions.